Alright guys, just making a little video for you guys to have on what we did today. We're continuing with systems. Remember, the system just means two equations. Okay, so we are going to follow these steps. I asked you guys to number them in class. And the first step is to solve one equation for y. So I'm going to get this first equation. It doesn't matter. Actually, I'm going to get the second equation because most students like that one better to solve for y. So we got to get y by itself. So we're going to subtract. Oh, that's step one. Ugh. Subtract the 2x. Híjola. Subtract the 2x. So that's our first step, solving for y. Y is by itself. And that's all we have to do for step one. Step two. Substitute your answer into y into the second equation. So second equation, 4y equals 12x. And in place of y, I'm going to put what y equals from step one in parentheses. So 10 minus 2x. Then step 3 says to solve the resulting value for x. So we're distributing because we can't solve with parentheses. So 4 times 10 is 40. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8x. I have the x variable on both sides, so let's get rid of it here. Minus 8x, so the opposite is to add an 8x. If I add an 8x on one side, I add an 8x on the other. I'm left with 40 equals 20x. And divide by 20, divide by 20, x equals 2. So that is going to be my first value. Remember from yesterday that our solution is a coordinate point, where the first value is x and the second one is y. So now we're in step 4. Substitute your value for x into either equation and solve for the value of y. I like to use the shortest one, so 4y equals 12x. X is 2, so 4y equals 12 parentheses 2. So 4y equals 24. Divide both sides by 4, y equals 6. So 2, 6 is my solution. Okay, so we're going to do it again. On this one, it's already set equal both equations to y, so I save myself a step. So pretty much, step 1 is already done for us. Step 2 is to get what y equals, substitute it into the second equation. So in place of y, I'm going to put 6x, because that's what y equals. Now I'm step 2. Step 3, solve for x. Again, I cannot solve with 2 x's on each side. Let's get rid of the 4x on the right. So then I subtract the 4x. If I subtract a 4x on one side, we do it on the other. Bring down the 18. Last thing there is to divide by 2. Right, so x equals 9. So I have the first value in my coordinate point, 9. Now we're in step 4. Pick either equation, it doesn't matter which one. I always like the shortest one. And for x, substitute in a 9 in parentheses. So 6 times 9 is 54. Done. Alright, so number 2 also has y set equal to something already. So step 1 is already done for us. Now we're in step 2. Step 2, get what y equals and substitute into the other equation in place of y. I'm going to put parentheses, substitute that x plus 1, what y equals from here. Okay, now there's nothing in front of the x, but in your homework, guys, if it's a plus, you can take off the parentheses. Though in your homework, you do have one that is a minus, so be careful with that. You're going to have to distribute a -1 before you remove the parentheses. In this case, because it's a plus, we can just take off the parentheses. So I'm going to have 2x plus, well, 1x plus 1x, which is 2x. then solve for x, meaning I gotta get rid of the 2 and the 1, get rid of the 1 first. Minus 1, if I subtract on one side, I subtract on the other. 5 minus 1 is 4. Bring down the 2x. Last thing there is to get rid of the 2. They're touching, so it's multiplication. That's why we divide, because it's the opposite. X equals 2. So that was step 3 here, where we solve for x. So we have our x, 2. Go ahead and do step 4, where we get the other one of the equations, it doesn't matter which one, and substitute in a 2 for x. So 2 plus 1. 2 plus 1 is 3, so there's my answer. You can always check it by using your graph in the calculator and seeing if they do intersect at 2, 3. All right, 2 more problems to go. So here we have to do step 1. It's not done for us. So we're trying to solve for y. Get rid of the 3x first by subtracting the 3x. I do to one side, do to the other. That leaves me with negative y equals 5 minus 3x. I cannot have a negative y. It always has to be positive. So we're going to divide everything by a negative 1. Y equals negative 5 and positive 3x. So that was step 1. Step 2, you get whatever y equals and substitute it into the other equation. So the other equation is negative x plus 2y. So I'm going to put parentheses and what y equals from our last step equals 0. Now, I told you guys that if you're going to be in class, I will allow you to use NSolve if you got this far. Obviously, you don't have a calculator, so you're going to have to solve by hand. So that's going to be negative x, and then we're going to distribute it 2 inside, meaning multiply it in. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. 2 times 3x, positive 6x. I have 2 x's on the same side, so we just combine them. Negative 1x plus 6, or 6 minus 1, is 5x. Then we still have a negative 10, and that's a positive, so put a plus, positive 5x. And now I can solve for x. I'm going to do it up here because I ran out of room. So negative 10 plus 5x equals 0. Get rid of the 10 first by doing the opposite. We have minus 10 or negative 10. Add a 10 to give you a 0. If I add a 10 on one side, I add a 10 on the other. 0 plus 10 is just 10. I have a feeling I messed up somewhere. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I forgot the 5. And then last thing there, the 5 is touching, so it's multiplication. The opposite is to divide, to get rid of it. Now that x is by itself, x is 2. That's my first value. Then now we're in step 4. Plug it into either equation. 3x minus y equals 5. I'm going to substitute in place of x. So 3 parentheses 2, right? Because x equals 2. Minus y equals 5. So that's 6 minus y equals 5. You can kind of already figure out that it has to be 6 minus 1 equals 5. If you want, you can just stop there, or you subtract a 6 from both sides, which will leave me with negative y equals negative 1. And then divide everything by negative 1, which will change the sign to a positive y. Positive y equals positive 1. So go back here and put a positive 1. Alright, last example. You can either solve for y, but see how it's already set equal to x? So we can do x instead of y. So that's what I'm going to do. Step 1 is already done for us. X equals negative 3y. Then in step 2, I go to the second equation and I don't put what x is. I substitute negative 3y in place of x from our first step. Write the rest of the equation. And then do the math. 15 times negative 3 is negative 45y. And then these two both have a y, so I can combine them. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. So I have the same sign, so we're going to add them and keep the negative sign. And we're still solving for y, so we need to get rid of that negative 47 by dividing by a negative 47. y equals negative 2. So then got part of my answer. My y coordinate is negative 2. I need to solve and find for my x coordinate. Find my x coordinate. So we're going to go to the shortest equation. And then in place of y, we're going to substitute in a negative 2 in parentheses. That's going to give me a positive 6. Okay. In the homework. I do, look guys, even if you do use nsolve to find the y or the x, whatever the first step is, I still need to see this part. If I only see one part of it, then I'm only going to give you half credit. So make sure you're showing your work for everything. On your homework, please show your work. It's okay if you have the answer, but I'm not giving you credit just to have an answer. I need to see the work.